You're listening to Video Villa Podcast, Episode 3 for When Harry Met Sally, directed by Rob Reiner. So today we're going to talk about Rob Reiner's When Harry Met Sally. I have Logan here with me, of course.
Hello.
The incredible duo, if I do say so myself, although I am biased. So we're going to talk about Rob Reiner's When Harry Met Sally, which is starring Billy Crystal, Meg Ryan, Carrie Fisher, who we all know and love from Star Wars, and Bruno Kirby, all playing Harry, Sally, Marie, and Jess.
Yes,
Take us off, Logan.
This is one of my favorite romantic comedies, hands down. I love this movie. I was late on it. I remember this is one of those movies I grew up with. It was very big when I was little because came out the year I was born in 1989. And everyone knows the famous dairy orgasm scene. It has just been burned in
the deli orgasm scene, yeah.
It has been burned in 90 kids' heads as like one of those like memorable moments. And you like, even though you don't know what it is, and you see, I mean, it's just like, it's one of those things that people were just talking about then. And it was a memorable scene. So like for the next 5 to 6, 7, even 8 years, people were still talking about it. I mean, we're still talking about, we're talking about right now. But yeah, I remember this movie very little when I was younger, but I didn't rewatch it probably until like I was probably like 20 or something like that. And I was like, damn, this is a good movie.
Yeah.
I mean, I was very shocked, and just the charisma that like Billy Crystal has, it's fantastic. And then Meg Ryan, I was never a huge fan of hers. But you watch this movie and like her Carrie Sally, like you can't but not like, she's sweet and just like, I don't know, like she's just like that. She's a very strong woman too. She has a very like good feminine role. I mean, she's a well-renowned writer and stuff like that. Like very someone admired to be with, if you're like, a little girl or something like that or whatever. But I was really taken away on how like good this movie was, and I couldn't wait to talk about it, and I couldn't wait to show you it because I know you hadn't seen it before. So I was like, "Oh, you got to watch it. This is great."
Yeah, and I am definitely a sucker for love stories. Always, usually.
I love love stories. I love love. Love is great.
Yeah, preach. But yeah, it's also so. Sally and Harry, their banter back and forth is also like really good. They definitely they
complement each other.
Yes. But they also play in the beginning the kind of like they both maybe kind of sort of like each other, but then like maybe not really.
Yes,
playing hard to get, and like ew, like is kind of how Sally acts towards Harry. Like he's gross, he's conceited, he's this, he's that. And Harry's just kind of just like being, I guess, just your stereotypical guy kind of thing, like, open to getting with women, but
he's very confident.
Yeah, but if not, whatevs, like, doesn't matter. It is pretty ironic though that like when Rob Reiner directed this and when they starred in this movie, that Billy Crystal, Harry, was 41 and Meg Ryan was Sally, and they both were playing people fresh out of college. And like, unfortunately, not that like Billy Crystal has aged poorly, but like, you could tell that he was older.
Well,
like,
yeah,
he didn't just get out of college.
No, like think so. He was 41, all right, and this movie came out over 30 years ago. You know what I mean? And the
yeah,
thing is,
I
like,
mean,
it's crazy.
my math don't math that well, but
But he don't get me wrong. He's still like, yes, he's like obviously like has old man look now, but he still like doesn't look bad at all.
yeah.
And he was in a FX show pre-quarantine that was actually pretty good with him and like Josh Gas guy or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't really care for him from it, but he was very funny in it, and he played himself.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's funny. Like, I've looked a lot of stuff up but this is what we found was like he was 41, she was 26. If you look all over the line, she was 28 and he was 40. It's like, so I was like, all right, well, this website seemed reputable and said he was 41 and she was 26.
Yeah, so they're somewhat in the realm, but they're obviously both playing fresh out of college.
Yeah.
Probably like your basic, whatever, if you want to look deep into it, their basic 4-year university.
She was 21 because she was 21
it
at
does
the beginning of the
countdown
scene. Yes.
as they've met.
It never says how old he was, but she was definitely 21 at the beginning of the scene.
Yeah.
Of her first introduction.
And they didn't, I guess they also didn't necessarily say that he was like fresh out of college, but it's
implied.
It's implied, insinuated, whatever. But yeah, so I thought that was ironic that like there is definitely an age gap. And if you like genuinely pay attention to the movie, you can see that, not in the way that the actors acted or behaved.
It's
or
more
their
like in the beginning.
Yeah, you're kind of like, that's weird. There's some aesthetic age differences going on.
But yeah, this was Rob Reiner's fifth film. I mean, one of his most famous movies is This Is Spinal Tap, which is a great mockumentary. I mean, hilarious. I mean, his second film, you got like The Sure Thing, which is another good movie. You got Stand By Me, a Stephen King classic that he directed. Great movie. And then Princess Bride, of course. I mean, legendary, The Princess Bride. I mean, what is it? Oh, God, I don't even want to mess it up now. But he's like, you killed my father. You prepared to die. I can't. Oh God, I wish it would have. I wish I any other day you could ask me what the phrase was, but I could say it. But
if any listeners want to correct Logan,
no. But
have at it. It's my favorite thing to do.
Yeah. But and this movie is just fantastic. I mean, I can't say it enough. I mean, Rob Reiner, he's a great. I think he's a great comedy director. Very funny. I mean, he was started like as almost like a comedian and being in All in the Family. Very funny show. I mean, classic, and that just I mean, just overall, I don't know. Like he's just. I mean, he just seems like I don't know. He just reminds me of my dad. Just seems like a very likable kind of character. And stuff like that. Like when you watch interviews with him and stuff like that. And even when he acts in shows and movies, he's, like he's on New Girl as Jess's dad. And he's very lovable in there. And, Jamie Lee Curtis is being her mom and whatever. But,
I love New Girl.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Maybe we could get to a point where I do a segment on just sitcoms. And
there you go.
I will talk your guys' ears off regarding sitcoms.
You should
Sitcom Sundays.
Rate your top 10 favorite sitcoms.
There we go.
Yes.
Yeah, coin it now, guys.
Top 10
Sitcom
favorite
Sundays.
sitcoms, and then each section you got to give your 3 favorite episodes.
Yeah, because I think I said in our first episode that I was like, I love sitcoms. Or maybe I said I love trash TV. I love both. I don't think one is more likable than the other, in my opinion, because I like them a lot, both. Yeah, so back to the fact that in the beginning, Harry and Sally both kind of play these characters that are stuck on this road trip together.
Yeah.
They're just trying to get the job done. They want to start their lives in New York. Harry definitely tries to kind of get into Sally's, not necessarily like mind, but find out who she is, what she's into, what she likes. And Sally's keeping conversation like pretty surface level. Like, for instance, as the road trip kicks off, Harry's like, so what's happened in your life so far? And Sally's like, what do you mean? Like, my life is just starting.
Just
and
starting.
she's so optimistic and light and friendly, and Harry is definitely a polar opposite. Even to the point where
he mentions himself as like, what's called the girlfriend that he's dating at the time told Sal, like, yeah, Harry's pretty dark. And he looks at himself like he's always seeing like the negative side of things and stuff like that. And like,
he's like, how often do you think about dying? Or
he's
something
not
like that.
optimistic at all. While Sally is a ray of sunshine and everything but I mean, she's only optimistic.
Yeah.
Never complains about anything or nothing really bothers her. She just lives her life, and her head in the clouds, just happy.
Yeah, and the fact that this cracked me up. Harry mentions that before he begins reading a book, he will read the first couple pages and read the last pages. And I'm like, well, he's kind of like on to something.
Yes, because
coming from someone that most likely will never read a book in its entirety. I have read books in their entirety. It just takes a lot for me to enjoy a book enough to read it in its entirety. But, if you read it the beginning and then the end, who cares what happened in the middle?
He does it on purpose because he goes, you never know if you're going to die before you get to finish the book.
And then you at least know how it ended.
Yeah.
But really what I'm thinking about is like in college and having to write papers and you're like, really just read like the half portion, the end portion, like bullshit the in between and you'll be good from there. So that was relatable that fact.
How about this? How about you give us the Becca breakdown of the movie and we'll go straight into it.
All right, yeah. So ultimately, as already mentioned a couple times, they meet. They're doing a road trip from where are they road tripping from?
Chicago to New York.
Yeah. So Sally is a very organized individual. She has it mapped out.
Yeah.
She's like, these are the hours we can switch on, or we can do this, and the other. Harry's a little bit more laid back. And then throughout the movie, you see them go separate ways in their lives, and they keep running into each other. And each time they run into each other, they are at a different spot in their life. So at one point, one of them is married, the other one's in a serious relationship, and then they both are singles and trying to navigate life after heartbreak, and ultimately leading them to find their final love. Which, spoiler alert.
Spoiler alert, yep. I mean, if you haven't seen the movie, you probably should watch it, but back out now if you haven't seen it yet.
So they ultimately find their real love, which is one another. They've been with each other through all these different changes, in different moments of these changes, not through and through. And they hit some hiccups and they, have a little bit of issues with one another. But in reality, it's just because each of them are who the other one wants to be with. So that's where the falling in love part starts, which is my favorite, on the wonderful New Year's Eve.
The cool thing, the cool fun fact is like that. Rob Reiner, the original ending was going to be that they didn't get together. They weren't going to wind up with each other. But while Rob Reiner was making this film, he actually, because this movie is basically a story of his life and him going through life post-divorce. But he actually, on the set of this movie, during making this movie, he actually found his new wife, and it completely changed his outlook on life. And so he changed the ending.
Love makes people love.
Yeah, he changed the ending of the movie, which was not typically, like I said, they weren't typically actually going to get together. I will tell you this: if they didn't get together, I wouldn't be reviewing this movie. and apparently Nora Ephron was the writer who wrote this. But apparently, it took her years to write this. The script was, this storyline was written 5 or plus years before the movie was even made. Do
you know how many fake books I wrote as a child that never even finished? How many little novels I sat there and wrote, or eventually when we got a giant machine in our kitchen of a computer, how many little books and all kinds of love stories and all sorts of stuff I wrote and never finished. So I get where she's coming from.
I see. I still got my comic book I wrote 6 years ago, 75% done, still sitting in my Google Docs.
Yeah, you have that, and then you also have the one in the notepad.
Yeah, it's the same thing.
Yeah. Hey, the more versions you have, the safer they are.
One of these days, I'll pick it back up. But last time I tried to look at it, I just felt like I wanted to throw up.
Yeah, I remember. I think I opened the book to write out a meal plan or a workout or something, and you're like, "Don't read that. That's embarrassing." Yeah. And I'm like, "Let me read it." I never read it. But yeah, so I get where Nora's coming from. Okay, it's a little hard.
No, it's a very sweet story, and what's called this is funny because this movie, a lot doesn't happen, which is funny because like if you think about it, there's not a lot that really goes on, but it kind of goes by a little fast, but you enjoy all the moments, all the beats. It's funny because it's just like it's like a puzzle kind of like thing, like things that are like slowly being put together, and then at the very end you're like, oh, you get this the final product, which is like the portrait or whatever of the puzzle, and you're like, hey, that was good. You know what I mean? I don't know if that makes any sense.
Definitely not gonna lie. When we made the decision to review this movie, I was like, well, I don't really know what to talk about because it's pretty straightforward. Yeah. They meet, they go their separate ways, they meet again, they go their separate ways, they meet again, and then they fall in love. But yeah, so we've already talked about how they met and stuff, but at one point, they what happens? Oh yeah, there's this airport scene, and
well, that's the next 5 years.
Yeah, well, after the next 5 years.
So like their first meeting, basically they're traveling together to go to New York from Chicago,
which we've already said.
Which we already talked about, and which we get to there's a scene where they go to a diner to talk about things, and they're kind of arguing back and forth that Harry's thought process of women and men is completely different than Harry's thought process of how men and women should act between each other and stuff like that, where he thinks that women can't have men friends because all men's friends always actually just want to sleep with them and stuff like that. So they get very disgruntled during that conversation. And then also Sally thinks that Harry's hitting on her, but all he does is really say that she's beautiful, and she's like, you're very attractive and whatever. And she's like, you're dating my friend Amanda. Why are you hitting on me? And he's like, I'm not hitting on you.
He's like, I can't just call you attractive.
Yeah. And so, and then,
she's like, look, just drop it.
Which is really fun. Okay, so she drives. If you noticed in this scene, she drives all the way to that diner, and they get in a fight. Harry's supposed to drive them from leaving the diner, and she circles around the car. He goes to get in the driver's seat, and she's like, she's so frustrated she can't get in the car. So then they circle around, and she gets back in the car and drives even more. It's like, it feels like
because they. At some point they pulled up, and because we made a comment about she's like sitting super close to him, but she's in the passenger seat.
Well, okay, yeah, you're probably right about that.
Yeah,
okay.
Because
we did think about why is she sitting so close to him?
Yeah, like
it looked like
it's a bench seat style thing, but she's sitting next to him, but like not facing forward. She's like sitting off to the side, like facing the passenger door. Passenger door. And it's like, girl, why are you so close to him? Back it up.
But it's funny because like this early scene just really builds up like Harry, and I guess it almost gives them like, you can tell that through the movie goes they grow mentally and stuff like that and mature, but they end up getting to New York, and he's like, well, if I see you, I see you, and she was like, because she was upset because she thought they were going to be friends. She's like, it would be nice to have a friend, be the only person I know in New York. And it was like, well, sorry, that ain't going to happen.
Yeah.
But anyway, so yes, then we get to the airport scene 5 years later.
Yeah, so Sally is saying goodbye to her boyfriend. Yeah. Joe, and who would have guessed it, in a city of however many people. I think he says 8,000 at some point, but
it's 8 million.
8 million, definitely not 8,000. I don't know what I'm talking about. I think there's more than 8,000 people where we live. But coincidentally, Harry knows her boyfriend and, comes and says hi to him,
Yeah.
and then kind of like nonchalantly says hi to Sally.
Oh, he doesn't really say anything to her. He just pretty much almost like slightly ignores her. She doesn't want to talk to him too because
Yeah.
she hates him so much from the
Yeah,
road
because as
trip.
soon as he walks away, she's like, "Oh my gosh, I drove from college to
From Chicago to New York with him.
and he tried to hit on me, and he was going with my friend." And then she's like, "What is her name? Oh my gosh, I forgot her name."
That seems funny. Yeah, yeah.
And she's like racking her brain for it and stuff. She eventually figures out the name, and she says her goodbyes to her boyfriend and stuff, and then gets on the plane, and she's just minding her business, orders a Bloody Mary. And there's one thing about Sally. She's very particular about the things that she orders.
Yes, and they play on it all throughout the movie, which is great.
That
it's
is just
great.
who she is. It's a quirky thing of hers. At the very first diner scene, she really just wants a piece of pie, but she orders it. But if they don't have this, then I want that. And if they have that, then I want this. And gosh,
I get it though. If you want something particular, and if it's not that, then
if
you
want
rather have
something
nothing at all. Then it
if
makes
you want
sense.
something particular, make it at home. Just kidding. That was a little harsh, but came out anyway. But yeah, she just gets a little wild with how particular she is. And she has her reasonings behind it every single time. But she's sitting in the plane and she orders her Bloody Mary. Not as particular as she normally would, but she orders it. And suddenly you notice that Harry is in the seat behind her and diagonally behind her and starts like bantering, which is just kind of his thing. He banters. And eventually the guy sitting next to her is like, do you just want to switch seats?
Well, he's trying to figure out. He's like, I know you from somewhere, and he keeps on. He says something wrong. She goes, we drove. She's like from Chicago.
It's like Mad Libs, and
yeah,
he keeps finishing her
what
sentences.
I said. He's like, what? And then she's, and he's like, well, did we ever like? He's like, God, no.
Yeah, and
She's like,
eventually, yeah.
all right.
So
and then eventually, the one guy's like, hey, what's called? Do you just want me to move? And she's like, no, please don't. And he's like, of course,
at the same
great,
time,
thank
he's
you.
like, yeah, absolutely, thanks. And so then she's like clearly annoyed by him. It's not someone she really wants to be around. Harry does mention he is getting married to his soon-to-be wife, Helen. And Sally's like, that's great. That's wonderful. And that was kind of it. It's just a passing by scene. It's just a pinpoint in their lives. I feel like that was the director and writers' point. They just wanted to pinpoint something. So like, okay, this is 5 years later. And Sally's still like, ooh, you suck. Harry's still like, this is funny to me.
Well, Harry, no, it's kind of shown like he's not as dark because he's getting married and he's kind of he doesn't seem. It seems like there's a little bit of evolution to his actual character because he's not coming off as dark because now he sees more things a little bit more clearly now that he's on his way of being married. So there's a little personal growth there from this scene while Sally's still like, I don't like you, you know what I mean? So it's kind of wishy-washy. Was like, okay, are they going to be friends or are they not going to be friends?
Yeah. So then the next time they run into each other is, I think, at the library. And right before the library, there's a little pinpoint where Sally is talking to her friends. She's at a restaurant.
This is 5 years later.
Yeah. So we move back to the next pinpoint in their lives.
So 10 years total.
So after 10 years, we're at a restaurant. Sally's talking to Marie. And so sorry for the other actor, but I forget her name. And she's talking about going through a breakup. And she's like, I'm great. I'm fine. It's fine. Like, don't need to talk about it. It's cool. And she seems like she's like rolling with it. And she sticks with that for a while.
She didn't tell them. They've been broken up for like 3 weeks. And she is just now telling her friends, oh, by the way, me and Joe, we broke up. They've been together for 5 years.
Yeah, so they just kind of roll with it, and then Logan, give us some insight on where Harry was because I didn't pay too much attention to that. Sorry.
Well, because it cuts back and forth between their conversations because they're at a Jets game. No, sorry, Giants game. They're at a Giants game with Jess, which is Harry's best friend in like New York, and he's talking about how he's getting a divorce from Helen, his wife, and it's just basically like. He's like, he's like, he thought we were happy. He thought that we loved each other.
Someone else,
and she's seeing, she was seeing.
He's like, this is a blessing.
She was seeing someone else and stuff like that, and she's like, well, do you still love me? And then that's when she like basically just goes, Carrie, I don't think I've ever loved you, and it just like crushes Harry.
Yeah,
like I know it's funny because he seems like someone who like his character. It's funny to see his character. Be so set back and kind of like heartbroken by it because he seemed to at the beginning of the movie he plays off a character like he really doesn't care.
Yeah,
you know what I mean, like it's not like like he thinks dark.
Those things
so
didn't matter to him.
He's already ready for the worst case scenario because he's already thinking about the worst case scenario.
Yeah.
So we get him and Jess's relationship at the game and stuff like that, and that's a pretty cool little scene. And then. After that scene, we switch over to the bookstore.
Yeah, not the library. Bookstore, library, whatever. You rent them, you buy them.
Yeah, the bookstore. And there's another little side story going on because Marie is...
probing Sally.
Well, she's throughout the half of the movie, Marie's seeing a married man. Yeah. And he's kept on having... She's like, like... thinking like eventually he's going to leave her.
Yeah, they bought a couch. I checked the credit card statement, and Sally, every little thing she says, Sally's like, he's married.
Well, no, she goes, how'd you check the credit card statement? It was in his briefcase. How'd you get in his briefcase? Well, I looked in his briefcase while he was in the shower. She was like, okay, you shouldn't be doing that.
Yeah. So Sally's trying to not necessarily give advice to Marie, but redirect Marie to stop doing that. That's for sure. And they're talking, and suddenly you just see Harry like creeping around the
which
bookshelves.
Is very creepy these times.
Nowadays.
Yeah, nowadays just this random guy just staring at you, and you see him staring at you, and it's so funny.
Joe, from You.
Oh yeah, like
is it Kohlberg or Joe?
It's Joe. Yeah, I don't remember his last name, but what's called. But yeah, like it's creepy because it's like. Marie is almost like, oh, so at 12 o'clock is looking at you from public, whatever it is, whatever section he was in or whatever. And it's weird because it's like, that's kind of stalker looking. Like it's, and they're just playing off like, she's like, oh, it's kind of cute. You know what I mean? It's like, no, it doesn't matter what the person looks like. It's kind of weird.
Yeah. I mean, they don't pay any mind to it. Just like in the airplane, he like sits right behind her and is like, you can see him kind of bobbing between the seats to see if that's her or whatever. It's a weird thing to do nonetheless, but it's, in this case, in the sense of acting, it is innocent.
It was a different time. It was 1989, so.
But, so what cracks me up is Sally clearly, like, does not want Marie to leave. Like, she does a brief intro, she tries to, like, introduce Marie to Harry, and suddenly it coins over, and Marie's, like, starting to go down the steps of the bookstore, and, like, just dips out completely. But this time, Sally's a little bit more friendly. She's going through her breakup, which she still seems, she's rocking it. She's doing okay. Harry isn't doing okay, but he's making it.
But also, if you pay attention, he's acting different. This scenario, he is definitely acting different. Like for the last couple times.
Oh yeah, the growth and development.
The way he's acting towards Sally, it's definitely different. You know what I mean? So it's like he's giving off a different vibe, and I think it's more of a I don't know what you would say, but like more of a more comforting vibe instead of a like kind of like being a jerk.
Yeah. So they become friends. I don't really know what sets them up to meet again, but
they go off and they have that long conversation after the bookstore, and they're walking all throughout New York and stuff like that. And at the end of the walk, they're like, because they're both catching each other up about their lives, and that's when
they're both in a spot where they're healing from a breakup, a divorce, whatever it may be. So now we stop the whole pinpoints of life aspect, and now we move forward into the development of an actual friendship.
Yes.
which we see into each of their everyday lives. They start calling each other every night. Just they agree to be each other's dates if they never have one.
Well, that's for New Year's.
Yeah, so they celebrate a holiday, and either way, they're just kind of just always there for each other on a day-to-day basis, just as friends, though.
Yes.
Which is funny because Harry always said
You can't.
a man can't be a friend with a woman without wanting to have sex with her.
And that's what he says at that end of that conversation. She's like, Harry, does this mean we're friends? And he's like, well, you're my first friend that's a girl or whatever. And she's like, okay. He's like, I think this is going to be good. I think this is going to be good. And then like Becca said, we get to see how the relationship evolves, and it's mainly over a bunch of phone calls and scenes and stuff like that. Like there's one scene where they're talking to each other on the phone, and it's funny where Harry's reading a book, and if you look at the book, it's Misery, and he's reading Misery, and then the next year, Rob Reiner directs the Misery movie.
I gotcha.
So I thought when I saw
Little
that, I was like,
golden egg.
oh, that's kind of cool. But mind you, like this movie was, it came out in 1989, but that doesn't mean it was filmed in 1989. So it's kind of it was foreshadowing his literally next film in 1990. So I thought that
Which
was
is very common for people to do, like
that was a
golden
cool
eggs,
little Easter egg.
snippets.
Yeah, a little Easter egg.
eggs.
And then we get to see other scenes of each other's tropes because there's a scene where Sally's at the restaurant and you can't see what she's saying, but you can tell she is just going to town on the waiter, telling her how she wants her food on the side or whatever. And you can just see Harry. Harry just like looks at the waiters like, I don't know, man, just deal with it.
Yeah, they just start to deal with each other how they are, and accept each other for
their quirks and stuff like that. And then there's another scene where like she's putting mail in the mailbox and she's doing one mail. Like,
well, yeah,
it's almost
she's checking the addresses and everything, and then she puts in the thing to make sure it makes it to the bottom before she puts another one in.
And Harry's just like gets so frustrated, he just grabs all of them and just shoves them in. And just like they're gonna get in there. They're gonna get in the box. But yeah, that's funny. So as that kind of like grows, then it becomes fall. So because that's the cool thing about this movie. We see as the seasons change throughout New York and like how fall goes into winter and stuff. But now in the scene in the movie, it's fall time, which was funny while we were watching the movie. We just took our trip to New York.
Yes.
Every time we saw something that, every time I saw something that we visited, I was like, I've been there. I saw that.
Yeah. And my favorite thing to do is visit New York at Christmas time.
It was so pretty. It was so pretty.
So, yes. So this year we went to Kat's Delicatessen or Kat's Deli where the famous orgasm scene happened with Sally. So we went there and checked it out and stuff along with a bunch of other things and posted some pictures there and all that good stuff, which leads us into that scene specifically. So
yeah, right before that scene, it's kind of like almost we get a little picture of they're going to start dating again. Like, because he
dating other people. Yes.
Dating other people because Harry's basically going to ask Sally, hey, do you want to go get dinner? And she's like, well, I kind of have plans. And she's been kind of scarce on letting him know because they've been spending so much time with each other.
Yeah.
Basically he's like, no, that's great. That's fine. You should go see people.
This was after they're at some sort of a museum or art museum or something.
They were doing, I don't know, like, I don't know what that was.
We have tried to mimic it and
I can't even do it.
We are not going to embarrass ourselves like that. But
and that was all ad-libbed, apparently.
Yeah. So
Billy Crystal just started talking like that.
Yeah. So they banter back and forth, and Sally's the type that she's a little embarrassed, and she's like, and she gets into a little bit the jokes and stuff, and then eventually she's like, well, I have plans tonight. I'm going on a date. And he's like, that's great. That's awesome. Blah blah blah. So they decide that. Well, they don't decide together, like unanimously.
Yeah.
But Sally obviously is revamping her dating life. She's moved on from Joe. She's ready to start date again. And Harry's kind of like, yeah, I mean, I could probably start dating again, I guess. Like,
Yeah, we
no
kind of
harm in that.
the growth starts to happen post breakup, basically, and post divorce. Like they're starting to grow, and now they're comfortable enough with seeing other people. And then this next spot into the movie is them pursuing that.
Yeah, so they're at the diner, they're ordering, and Harry, I guess for some reason, thought every orgasm he's made a woman have was a real one.
Yeah.
And they are not always real.
Well, he starts like he's like, what do you mean? Like he's like, you don't think she faked it? He's like, faked it. I would know if she faked it. He's like, and she's like, oh, really?
Yeah.
Bet. You know what I mean? She
Yes.
doesn't say that, but it's like, all right, bet.
Yeah, so she's like, oh, okay, yeah, like she just makes him think like she's just like, whatever, I'm gonna brush it off. Until she fakes an orgasm right there in the middle of the deli, which everyone's like, oh my gosh, like staring at her and stuff, and she's going to town, have at it. And I want to give props to both of them for not just like dying laughing in the middle. Like they were committed
Oh, yeah.
to that scene. Committed, fully committed, utterly committed. And then you get the iconic scene with the old lady that's like, I'll have some of what she's having.
Yeah.
When the guy's trying to get her order, which then proves Sally's point to Harry, which women indeed can fake it.
Which was Billy Crystal's idea. He came up with that line. He's like, what if we had someone say, you know, what if we have that lady over there say, I'll have what she's having? And that was his line, and it stuck into the movie. So that's another kind of cool thing. It's kind of like those funny scenes, like, for example, like Harrison Ford in the first Indiana Jones, this humongous dude with a sword is doing all this sword dance, the kind of like scenario right before he's about to like literally just murder Indy. And then basically he's like, well, I got this gun here. Why not just shoot him? And then he just shoots him. So it's like one of those funny scenes.
So after this, it just represents their relationship, kind of their banter back and forth. Sally is hell-bent usually on proving Harry wrong, and Harry is in a constant state of thinking Harry is right. So we go through the change of seasons, which is another aspect I want to point out that both the writer and director did a really good thing at, like it did not good thing good job at, which is you see not only are you seeing these two people evolve as individuals and as together, but you see the seasons change through New York.
Yeah.
And you just really you see that evolution in so many different aspects, which is just nice and enjoyable to see in general in any movie. So Sally and Harry are getting a Christmas tree.
Yeah, you see kind of all these little like like they're really best friends. They're like on each other's hip at all, like a lot. Like, you know,
and
she's
it's not
helping.
even a no strings attached type thing. They're not intimate.
No,
Like
they're
they
not being
just
intimate at all. It's literally just friendship.
Yeah.
Just pure friendship, which is, it's really nice because, I mean, they don't see each other in any like sexual way, and they're not, it's definitely like, I mean, I'm not going to say like a brother and sister relationship, but it's just like a very close relationship that they've built over the past year, basically.
Yeah, so they both have listened to each other, fail at dating, and so on and so forth. So they decide that they're going to go on a double date with Marie and Jess.
Yeah, this is right after their New Year's Eve pact that they made, which comes later on in the movie. Basically, they said, you know, if you ever don't have a date on New Year's, we make a pact that will always be each other's date for New Year's Eve.
Yeah. So they go on this double date with the intention of Harry is going to see if he's interested in Marie and vice versa, and Sally's going to see if she's interested in Jess and vice versa. Well, the dinner kicks off and it's off to a poor start in the way that they wanted it to be.
Yeah. It's very funny where it's like, you know, they both have to hype each other up to go on the date. Because mind you, this is the first time they're meeting each other's best friends.
Yeah.
So they're like hyping up, like Jess is worried that Sally is not attractive and stuff, and then Marie is still caught up on the married guy she's trying to get to leave his wife. So she's not even like really. She's not even thinking too much of this double date. You know what I mean? It's very funny because, like, you know, like they're both admitting to do something, but both of these two people are like kind of hesitant to doing it.
Yeah. So they're leaving the date and they're walking down the sidewalk, and it's quite obvious that
It's not been going well.
yeah. But that Jess and Marie definitely want to leave with each other.
Yes, they've definitely they definitely hit it off.
Yeah, they each pull their friend aside and are like, yeah, I'm kind of interested in, Jess, and well, I'm kind of interested in Marie. And they're like, great, great, great. Well, can you like wait till tomorrow or wait a couple days?
Yeah,
wait
a
a
couple.
week.
Harry's
really
really
hard.
sensitive right now.
Yeah.
I know. I get it.
It's really hard on Sally.
Yeah.
Like she's very, she's going through a lot. And they're like, yeah, absolutely. And then suddenly one of them waves down a taxi.
Well, Jess just goes, yeah, I'm kind of done walking.
Yeah, I'm gonna call it a night.
They're in the middle of walking, and he just abruptly is just like, I'm done walking right now. He's like, and he goes, I'm going to get a cab. And she's like, and then Marie's like, can I come with you? Yeah, that's fine. And then they just bolt.
Yeah, and so that just went out the window, and Harry and Sally are like, well, here we are.
They made it so easy to find a cab, too. I tell you right now, like,
that's one thing we didn't find in New York.
No,
we found plenty of other things.
I didn't find that easy at all. I mean, I don't know, like.
I don't know. You wave them down. If anyone has hints on how to catch a cab or a taxi in New York, please give us tips, because we're going to go back here soon. Because oh my gosh, I feel like everyone I tried to wave down or wave at, like, literally looked at me and then just kept driving. And I'm doing something wrong. And because one of them, down towards Lower Manhattan, one of them, like, literally had no one in it and just looked at me and just kept driving. And I'm like, what the heck?
Obviously, we're missing. Oh, he waved you away.
Yeah, he literally was like, scoot, scoot.
He shooed you.
Yeah, I'm like, what the hell? There's no one in here.
Yeah, obviously, we're missing something here. We're like,
we missed a memo.
Yeah,
in New
we
York.
missed something. I mean, it ended up working in our favor because we ended up using like the subway and stuff like, which is much easier and much less expensive.
I would have liked a taxi.
Yeah,
at that point in time, because we were trying to get like across Lower Manhattan, and I just didn't feel like dealing with the subway at that point in time. But whatever, the taxi didn't feel like dealing with me.
But go back to the scene. That's a really funny scene, and
in every movie they catch taxis. Some movies there's quirks and people like can't catch a taxi.
Plane, trains, and automobiles. He can't get the taxi, and the guy then John Candy steals his taxi.
Yeah. But now Jess and Marie like really seriously hit it off, more than just like a date or a night fling. They hit it off.
And then, then after they hit it off, we kind of move forward to the next scene where we find out that now they're actually planning a wedding and they're going to get married. So it kind of jumps a little bit. I want to say it's like maybe like 3 or 4 months into the future or whatever. And so they've been doing so well. Now they're actually going to get married. And this is one of my favorite scenes, but they're in a Sharper Image or some store or something like that in New York, and they're trying to figure out what wedding gift should they get them and whatever.
Yeah.
And Harry's just being a little kid in the store or whatever, and he comes across a karaoke machine, and for some reason he thinks this is the best. This is what we should get him. We should get him this gift right here, this karaoke machine. And he's like,
not only that, but he starts to use it.
Oh yeah, he starts using it, singing the main song to Oklahoma.
They had 2 songs printed on the little instruction manual.
And then they start, and it's a duet, and then Harry's singing and whatever, and he's obviously like almost I can't remember if Billy Crystal was a theater actor or whatever, but like he's obviously like comical and doesn't have that bad of a voice. And then Sally starts singing, which is not bad, but she's like, it's funny because in the middle of singing, and Harry just stops singing completely.
Yeah. And
Sally's still going.
Yeah, Sally's like trying to keep the beat and like sing it.
She's like, what's wrong? It's my voice, isn't it? You hate my voice. And he's like, no, it's Helen. And she's just into the microphone's like,
it's
Helen?
Yeah.
And which obviously they're walking right towards them that you could hear all inside the store. But there's freaking Helen, his ex-wife.
Which, let me tell you something, maybe I'm wrong, but if you see someone from your past in public, there is no obligation to go up and say hi.
I agree.
There's
no they shouldn't be in contact with each other whatsoever. It's been over a year now since they're divorced.
There's just no need. Like, I'm not sorry. I will just, you weren't there. You were a ghost. And just just keep walking, keep trucking. And I mean, if you're on good terms with someone, say hi, be kind. It doesn't take much. But you don't got to go up and talk. You can wave, a nod, a smile.
The way she walks up, and it's just almost like, how you doing? Like, let me show off how well I'm doing. And this, like, it didn't come off as being genuine whatsoever. And that's the reason why I say that. It's the way she walks up. It's just pure, just like, like, ew,
And
get
then
away.
not only that, but she introduces her partner or whatever.
I think it's Irene. I think his name was Irene. It was Irene or something like that.
Oh, but she introduces her partner, and Harry doesn't even introduce Sally.
Yeah, it's funny. He's
Obviously, he's baffled. He wasn't expecting this, and he says this later on. He's like, I mean, I was bound to run into her in a city full of 8 million people, which is like, no, you weren't.
Exactly. That's the funny line. That's the funny part of it. Yeah.
And so he's baffled. He's taken back.
Ira. His name was Ira. Irene. That's close. But Ira. Yeah.
But he's taken back. So obviously he's kind of like, oh my gosh. And this is like, he's been doing good with this divorce and stuff when he wasn't doing that good in the beginning. And so they run into each other, whatever. Sally introduces herself, or finally it clicks in Harry's head and he introduces Sally. And then they just kind of like awkwardly part ways.
Yeah. It's sad. Like, obviously you can tell Harry's very taken away by this.
Yeah, like that took a hit on his coping.
And so this leads us to basically it seems like the next scene. Can't remember if it's that day, but now they're at Jess and Marie's house. And they're arguing over the coffee table. The pinwheel coffee table and stuff. And
clearly Harry's just like on edge.
Oh, he's built up. He's built up, and something just sets him off. I guess he's getting irritated by their conversation, and he just goes off on this divorce rant and stuff like that. And he's like, you know what? See this dish right here?
Marie and Jess are like,
yeah, right.
What?
They're
It's
like
just
looking
a
at each
table.
other, and he goes off on. You see this dish right here? It costs $8, but it's going to cost you $1,000 in court fees of this is mine and this is not mine. This is not yours or whatever. And it's pretty funny because it's a lot of truth because the amount of what divorce lawyers do these days and stuff like that. Like a $100 piano will cost you $10,000 in court fees after you decide who actually gets the freaking piano.
Yeah. So, but then unfortunately, like at first Jess and Marie are like taken back by it, and they're like, okay, clearly something's wrong with Harry. And Sally's just kind of like letting him run himself out, like just let him keep going for a little bit. And they take it outside because clearly it's time for them to go.
Yeah.
And as they're on the porch, they get annoyed with each other and they walk off, storm off.
Harry gets mad because Sally's always so happy.
Oh,
and
yeah.
it frustrates him because he's not. He's
like, why are you not hurting? Why are you not this? Why are you not that? And she's like, I am, but just because I don't display it by being ridiculous over my friend's table doesn't mean I'm not going through it. And So then they calm back down relatively quickly, but they're sitting on the stoop, and Jess comes out with the wheelbarrow table because now it's nobody's wheelbarrow table.
the wagon wheel table. Yeah, that's funny. He's like, I don't want to hear anything.
Yeah.
But yeah, because that was that funny part. He's like, I thought you said you. He's like. He explains about he yells at him about the table, how ugly it is. He's like, I thought you said you liked it. He goes, I was being nice.
Yeah.
But yeah, this little scene was just funny, and also it's nice to see, he gets irritated, he blows up, but then he sees where he's wrong, and he definitely just apologized. Like after he's like come to, and I think he wasn't going to get that way if Sally didn't talk him down. You know what I mean? And I think that shows another part of this movie where it's like they do work well together. Like he gets worked up, but Sally's able to reel it in. You know what I mean? And that's a kind of cool thing to see. So yeah, then we move forward a little bit after this scene where they move. It's I guess a month or a couple months later down the line, and now they both have found somebody, and they're all doing double dates at Jess and Marie's
like
house
game
party.
nights.
Yeah, it's a game night. Yeah. This scene is pretty cool where they're playing Pictionary and stuff like that, and then but we kind of see them kind of like just. See
they
how
rag on each other's
awful
partners.
They are. Yeah, they rag on each other's partners and stuff, and how awful.
But not like blatantly, but like enough where it's like borderline.
Well, it's what it is. It's like they're low key judging each other's partners, and it's funny to see because it goes back and forth. Because like Harry's talking to Jess, and he's like, yeah, we went to Met games the other night. It was nice. He's like, Sally went to Met games. She hates baseball. And he was like, well, I mean, it was good seats or whatever.
Yeah.
And then you go to Sally. She's talking to Marie, and she's like, don't you think she's kind of young for Harry and whatever? And she's like, well, with what she's done with all her life, I mean, it doesn't really matter her age. She's like, well, what do you mean what she's done with all her life? All she does is make cakes, and apparently she's a famous cake maker in New York, and has been like the #1 cake maker in New York. She's like, what? She is Miss Marie's Cakes or whatever. I don't remember their cake's name or whatever, but it is kind of funny with them seeing like, I don't know if they're both like, I don't know if that's the right person for them. So that's kind of funny because it's starting to show like, I think y'all like each other. Y'all don't want to say it, but I think y'all like each other.
Yeah, it kind of Harry's reaction when Sally said she was going on a date kind of kicked off the thought a little bit, and then the argument kicked it off because they were arguing like they were a couple. The argument outside of Jess and Marie's house, that kind of kicked it off to be like, well, now you guys like you do really, really care about each other more than just being a backup plan when your dates and stuff don't work out.
Yeah.
And then this kind of sealed the deal where it's like, well, you guys even actually care who the other person's dating. You're not just friends.
It's sweet to see that because he's like, okay, now something's brewing here. Fine, like because you kind of like you're rooting for it, and then you're like, okay, we're starting to see a little hint of that relationship or whatever. But this bleeds into a little bit getting to the point to where we cut back. And it's just a random night. It's past the house party night or whatever.
Yeah, because they don't have any connection with each other right now. Because
they're not spending as much time with each other because they're dating each other people, whatever. But and also as we go into the scene, we don't really know if they still have partners at this time. It's not really clear. But the last thing we saw was they had partners. This next scene, we find out that Sally's not doing so well, and she basically is calling Harry in the middle of the night. And it's kind of funny. Right before she gives him a phone call, he's reading a book, and he does that thing. He's reading the book, and then you see him flip to the back of the book to read it a little bit or whatever, and then he gets the phone call, and Harry's seen Sally. He's never seen before. She is broken.
Yeah,
just crying.
So she finds out that Joe's getting married.
Yeah.
And she's just so tore up, because that's not her. He's not getting married to her. He's getting married to someone else, and they haven't even been together for that long. And so she asks Harry to come over and is trying to console her. And
it's so funny to see how manic she is because this is a character we have not seen yet so far. This is like the way she's acting. This is not Sally. This is not optimistic Sally. This is not nothing. This is not
strong,
looking on the bright
resilient,
side. This is straight dark Sally.
Yeah, we've all been there during heartbreak. Heartbreak hurts.
It's normal, but this is unnormal for her.
Yeah. So and she's like, Harry gives her a hug or whatever, and then she's like, "Will you hold me a little bit longer?" And then you're like,
Yeah.
Okay. And they
one thing leads to another, and they end up sleeping with each other, and it's so funny because the next scene after what happens, it's so different because each other has taken it the complete opposite.
Oh yeah, so
Sally
way earlier.
Go. Or you say what you want to say.
Yeah, way earlier in the movie, Harry is pretty much like talks about how sometimes after being intimate, people want to like cuddle all night, and he's like, I just want to leave.
I just want to get home.
Yeah,
I want to get the hell out of there, basically.
Yeah. And Sally's taken back by that. Like, how dare you? And he's like, so are you one of those people that like to cuddle the whole entire night afterwards? And Sally like doesn't necessarily want to be like, well, yes, but you can see that she's like, well, yeah, obviously.
Yeah.
So they hook up, And you just see it in Harry's eyes. He wants to go. He wants to run for the hills. And Sally is just like in awe.
She is so happy. She is just like laying on his chest, like smiling ear to ear.
Yeah.
And it's it's so funny. They're completely thinking two different things. Oh man, it's so funny. You would think that like maybe possibly like, oh, this might be different with Sally, but it's still Harry in his normal ways. And don't get me wrong, he doesn't leave immediately. He stays for a while, and then they get up, and he's just like, "Hey, let's go out to dinner tonight, whatever." And she's like, "Okay." And he's like, "All right, cool. So I'll pick you up around 7 or whatever, whatever."
Yeah.
So, and then they go to dinner, and
it is so awkward.
It's
not
so
the normal
awkward.
thing.
Yeah, it's not the thing anymore, and it is just. I don't know what's going on, but like obviously something has disrupted their mojo.
Well, that thing.
Yeah, of course, yeah. Which is it's unfortunate, but yeah. So that bleeds into it doesn't. Like I said, the movie happens a lot with you don't know the exact timeline, except you don't know how many months has it been a week. You don't. I can't remember. You don't know, but the next scene cuts over to Harry and Sally are at Jess and Marie's wedding. Now it's the wedding day.
They haven't really talked, which that's pointed out when Sally is with Marie getting her bridesmaid's dress or maid of honor dress. And she's like, so is Harry bringing a guest? And I think Marie takes like the I don't know route. She's like, nah, yeah. After they hook up, they do call Jess and Marie at the same time.
Oh, that's pretty good. Yeah, that's a funny scene.
On different phones. And Jess and Marie get off the phone. They're like, oh, God. And they're like, because
they're sitting in bed with each other, by the way.
Yeah, at first, Jess and Marie are talking to Harry and Sally individually, the guy friends, the girlfriends. And they're like, oh, that's great. Oh, no, that's not great. Okay, that's not great. And so everyone's like so confused. And they get off the phone, and pretty much Jess and Marie are like, we're not getting into this.
Yeah,
this isn't our business.
And they're sitting there, they look at each other like, they look at each other like, I'm so happy to have each other. Well, they're happy that they don't have to deal with that shit anymore.
But they're also like, what the hell? Like, after all this, what the hell? So we move to their wedding, and inevitably they're both the bride and the groom's best friends, so they can't like not mingle with one another.
Yeah. And it's basically Harry goes and check in on Sally, and he's just trying to pick up their relationship like nothing happened. Sally's like, well, we can't do that now.
Yeah.
This is a big deal. Like we can't just act like nothing happened. And and then Harry's like, well, it doesn't. I mean, you're acting like it's a big deal, and it sounds like, no, it is kind of a big deal. And he's like, okay, well, I get that it's a deal, but it doesn't have to be the main deal. Like, he has that phrase, he's like, I get it means something, but it doesn't have to mean everything. And then that's when Sally's like, what do you mean it doesn't? It means everything.
Yeah.
So, like, I'm sorry, but like,
Mind you, they're arguing in the kitchen.
Their conversation goes back into the kitchen and stuff like that, and they're like,
and the cooks are like,
yeah, no, because they're like almost like yelling at each other, and it's just like, it means everything. Like, sex is a big deal. I don't just go around sleeping with people.
Like Harry.
Like, yeah. And like, unfortunately, like, Harry's like, Harry gets around. So, but it's really funny just like to see that banter and stuff like that. And then they kind of like have to like get rid of it because their names are called, and they go out to the front.
They go out, they make their way back out of the venue, and then immediately they start like thanking.
Jess is thanking them. He's like, if it wasn't, Jess says like in his speech, like, if it wasn't for them two, we wouldn't have wind up,
Yeah, together.
Yeah, it's very funny, but this conversation really blows up. Not well, and we see that this takes a big toll on their relationship. And this moves into the next scenes where they are not.
It flashes by, and now Sally's getting a Christmas tree by herself.
Yeah, we see the seasons change without them being without them being each other's lives. But this whole entire time, Harry is trying to contact Sally, but Sally ain't having it.
He's leaving voicemails. He's like just doing everything under the sun to just get in contact. And Sally's just like ignoring it until one day she picks up and she's like, "What do you want? What do you?"
Yeah, it's New Year's Eve.
Yeah.
I think she's about to leave the house, and to go to the New Year's Eve party, and she finally picks up, and he's like so excited that she.
Well, he's also leaving a voicemail first. He's like, either you're not answering because you don't want to talk to me, you're under something very heavy, or does he say you're dead or something?
No,
it's
like something like you're not. You
or
don't
you're
want to
not
talk to
home
me.
right now.
You're not home right now, or you're underneath something heavy and you can't talk to me.
So if it's two of those three things, please give me a call back.
Yeah.
And she answers like right as he's going on in that rant.
Yeah, and then she's just like, he's like, hey, he's trying to talk to her, and it's obviously like it's a very dead conversation, and he's like, well, what are you doing? Are you going out so and so's tonight? He's sitting there, and she just basically like,
Sally comes through with the gray rock method.
Yeah.
My favorite thing on this planet.
I can't be around, like what she says something like, I can't be around just because. I can't be around just to make you feel good,
Yeah.
Harry. Because
And she just stays to the facts and just is pretty much boring. Like she's just like, I'm not having this conversation. Like
yeah, you can't come around and expect us to be friends after what happened, and I can't just make you happy. I can't be that last scenario for you and stuff like that.
Yeah, and so she just keeps it plain simple. Doesn't really feed into it very much, and that's I think she like hangs up on him or whatever.
Yeah, and she leaves, and then she goes to the New Year's Eve party, and you see Harry. He's just walking by himself, outside, and he's just on a walk stroll back, in New York. I think he lived in Manhattan. I think it was they say we're in Manhattan, so he's walking around Manhattan and stuff, whatever. And basically, he's just. You can see the gears are turning in his head.
He's trying to do all the things that they would do. Like he tries to get ice cream, doesn't like it, throws it away. He's just like trying to occupy himself, just like definitely like twiddling your thumbs type moment.
Yeah, and then he has that clarity where he's just like,
I got to do something.
I'm done. And he's like, taxi and whatever. And so, and
favorite part of every love movie. My favorite part.
At the very end, he shows up and he just gives that spiel of like.
And Sally's already kind of upset because it's almost midnight, so she tells Jess and Marie like I'm leaving, and she's teary-eyed, and Jess is like, I'll be your midnight kiss or whatever, just trying to be good friends and be supportive. And they're like, no, please, it's just a couple minutes, please stay, Sally. And she's like, no, and she's all teary-eyed, and she's like, I'm gonna go. And she's my favorite part, she's making her way out, and Harry storms in, knight in shining armor, far from, but that's okay.
And he just basically unloads his love on her, and he's like, I can't remember the speech, but it's very memorable. Where he's just like, I like the fact that it takes you forever to order an entree or whatever at a restaurant or whatever, and he's, and I think it's been like several months because I think he said something about in the last 3 months I hate the fact of like going to bed without talking to you and stuff like that, and just basically spills out his love, and he's just like when you find out the person you want to spend the rest of your life with, you really start to think is I want to start the rest of my life as soon as possible, and that's why he's here, and that's why he's doing it. Because I think she's like, why are you doing this, Harry? That's why I'm doing this. And then she starts crying, and she's like,
you make it hard to hate, or
yes,
you're so easy to hate, or something like that.
She says, she goes, I hate you, Harry, because you do these things, you do so many good things to make me not hate you, but I hate you.
Yeah.
And she's crying and stuff like that. And then they hug and kiss, and then at the end of the movie, there it goes at the end of the movie, because throughout the movie, we didn't talk about it, I didn't really make notes on them, but like throughout the movie, there's these sweet conversations with older couples, and they talk about how they first met.
Yes, that's my favorite part.
Which the conversations and the stories are 100% real. They are being portrayed by actors. I didn't think at first, but the first old lady, I'm like, I've seen that old lady in movies before. She was in, she's even on, she's in The Office. She's Michael Scott's grandmother that lives in the nurse home that he tries to get a loan from or whatever. But like, I was like, oh, that is an actress. I know her from somewhere. But the stories are real, and they are so sweet. There's just there's the one where they're like,
where he's had like several divorces, and she's like, and then
she remembers all of it. He can't even remember any of it.
And all the women's names, and she was like, and then you were so and so, and then you were so and so.
That was Roberta.
Yeah.
It's like, and then, and then I was with so and so. It's like, because that was funny because they were married, divorced, and then like,
35 years later, something like that.
yeah,
Something
yeah.
crazy.
They were remarried 35 years later or
Yeah.
something like that. That
And
was
then there's
funny.
one where, couples fell in love young and stayed together.
Well, the one
Gosh,
was
I'm a sucker for
where
that
they
shit.
they didn't meet up, and they lived so close to each other without knowing it, and then they didn't meet up until they were like on a trip at a hotel.
Yeah.
And that was the one part where he was like, I went up 9 extra floors because I just want to keep on talking to her. It's
Yeah.
so sweet. And then one of my favorite ones was the one where it's like I was. Oh, my favorite one is when the guy is. It's mainly the woman talking, and she's sitting
Yeah.
there. She's like, "I was at a party, and Jolene was there, or whatever." And she's like, and he's like, "I see him walking up, and everyone always want to talk to Jolene." That's Jolene's not her name. I'm just making up a name for the sake. But like, she's like, everyone always wanted to talk to Jolene, but no, he walked straight up to me, and he said, "My name is
Whatever it was.
Steve
Yeah.
Smalls from the Coney Island Smalls or whatever." And she's
Yeah.
like, "That's when I knew. You just know, like when you know I have a good melon or whatever." I thought that story was so cute.
Yeah.
All
so-
he had to say was that. She's like, "I knew he was the one."
yeah. It's just, I'm a sucker for it.
But it cuts to now it's them telling their story.
Yes.
Yeah.
So they share their story, their walk through love, and we get to hear them sum it up in their own point of view, essentially, is that gig.
Yeah, and they redo that in some newer movies. I think he's just not that into you. They recreated that, and that was kind of funny. But that was all actors too. But this is like that kind of like interviewing people and stuff like that. And then there's another movie what they did this for. I actually think these weren't actors. Oh, no, they weren't actors at all. But they were actually real people. But there's a movie called Paper Hearts. And they did the same thing in that. Where
Yeah.
they go through because one of the scenes is in Nashville. Is at the shit. There's a famous coffee shop in Nashville right by oh shit, whatever. It's a famous coffee shop, but the guy was a musician and he was sitting on his car or whatever in front of the coffee shop in Nashville, and they filmed that scene. But yeah, that's another funny where it's a homage to this movie. A lot of people thought this movie did very well when it came out, but a lot of people thought it was like very like Woody Allen-ish, whatever. And I can see that, but like to be honest, like I still really enjoy this movie. I'm not really saying like I don't like Woody Allen movies, but I don't know if this was just like this just seemed more enjoyable, more likable than a Woody Allen movie. My personal opinion or whatever. But I love this is like that was like the perfect like end point to like the movie of them showing up on the same couch and the same backdrop that other people were talking at and stuff like that. Yeah, it was really cute.
Yeah, so then the movie ends and you get to gawk in their love.
Yeah.
Like every love story has.
But yeah, this movie's it's like I said earlier, I can't say enough. And I know I rant and I will repeat myself over and over again, but whatever. But this movie's great. I mean, this is one of those movies like it is just, I watched this movie 3 times before we reviewed it. And the same jokes. I laughed every single time they came up because it's just funny. It's just a little funny, like the scene where he spits at the window with the grape at the very beginning of the movie, and he's like,
yeah.
"Oh, I'll roll the window down." It's like, dude, what the?
It's too late now. Just spit the seed on the thing.
But I laugh every time I see that, and him and his funny banter while he's on the airplane and the
seat behind her.
The seat behind her. The way he talks, I laugh every time. It's just funny. It's like it's one of those feel good movies and stuff. And and like I said, it was I mean, for romantic comedies, it stand the test of time. I mean, people were still talking about it. I know some movies are like the new generation. They don't talk about certain movies as much as as like our generation, like the generation in front of us now or whatever. They're not really talking about movies like this. But I wouldn't doubt it, give it some time and I'm sure like it will resurface again and it'll be, people will continue to talk about this movie. It's just a classic. It's a romantic classic. And I think this was the movie, to be honest, which really showed off Meg Ryan how lovable of a character was.
Oh yeah.
She had, she was in movies before this movie, but this was that movie where you're like, oh man, like I like this Meg Ryan girl, and then obviously she became like the rom-com queen for a while.
Yeah.
Sleepless in Seattle. You got, you got Mel. I mean, that's like the rom-com trilogy. Oh, well, right, more of a drama, but City of Angels with Nicolas Cage. I mean,
Yeah.
just it's a great movie, and everybody has a good time. Yeah, I think when you watch it.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I agree.
But yeah, I mean that's it. I mean, we what's all that's really all I gotta say. I'm just gonna go around a circle more if I keep on talking.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a wonderful movie. And we're not too sure what movie we'll be reviewing next. So I think we might post up a poll of maybe
I
two
got a
or
couple
three
of movies that I
options.
want to play for you and stuff like that.
Yeah, so we'll probably post those ideas and get a poll of what some of our peeps want to listen to. And as always, thank you guys so much for listening to us. Definitely like, subscribe,
Yes, if you
favorite,
yeah,
whatever you want to do on your
if you
side
could
is
give us a give
enjoyable
us
and appreciated.
if you do like it, yeah, go hit the like button. Go up there if you're on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, give us a 5-star review. Apparently, that really helps with the algorithms, so we can actually find new audiences and stuff like that. So if if you like it, you enjoy it, help us out a little bit, and give us a little 5-star review on Apple Podcast or Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts, Amazon or Google or whatever.
Yeah, and then we also have an Instagram account and a Facebook. So if you're looking for regular updates of when we will be posting and some teasers, as well as we love going on fun adventures. Like we went to New York, we saw a few different hot movie spots, and we like to post those things because they're just fun.
We
They're
went to
fun for
the
us to show
Ghostbuster
off.
Firehouse.
Yeah, so we do fun stuff like that and post about it. So if you want to see that stuff and see those announcements, the easiest way for you to get those notifications and to see all that good stuff is by either following or liking the Facebook and Instagram.
Yep.
But yeah, so until next time, this was episode 3 with When Harry Met Sally, and we hope you all have a good day, a good night, whatever it may be, wherever you are.